If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way. If I had the nerve to speak, you wouldn't hear what I say. Time has come and gone so fast, we're not who we used to be.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Craig, and we're at the Sacred Mushroom. What a fabulous place this is.
Thank you.
And when we met the other day and we started having this conversation about psilocybin therapy, I was like, I need to have a podcast with this guy because there's so many misconceptions out there. And just before we were starting here, we were talking about, and I think this is a good place for us to start, is the mental health crisis that we're facing in this country of ours, because what you were talking about is 100% right. So take me through what we were talking about, just about this idea or philosophy of the mental health crisis that we're in.
Sure. In looking at whether or not to open up a facility for psilocybin treatment, we started to look at what good it might be able to do. And we really came across statistics that showed the numbers of people in the United States that either suffer from or have been diagnosed with anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, addictions, eating disorders. When you add them all up, if that was any other single category of disease, we would classify it as a pandemic.
Yeah.
And no one has said, hey, wait a minute, we have a mental health. I mean, there has been talk that there's a mental health care crisis in this country, but that more focuses on the therapies than it does on just the sheer volume of people that are being affected by it. So really there has to be a better way of treating these things so that we can begin to address the pandemic and be effective in the way we're treating it. The current systems are overloaded, outdated, medication focused. Those medications are typically either addictive or have a whole slew of side effects.
Can I pause there for just a second?
Sure.
Because one of the things that I read recently is that the foundation on most of the mental health meds that they have, whether it's serotonin reuptake or all that stuff, they're saying that may not actually have an impact on that mental health side.
Well, I haven't read that, but we do know that the medications that are available don't work on a lot of people.
Okay. Now I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because of this, it's clear we've got to come up with something better. Ketamine was the first really commercial introduction of psychedelics into the U.S. market. In our opinion, it was probably the wrong substance to use to introduce the American public to psychedelics for a lot of different reasons. But some states like here in Oregon and now Colorado have begun to allow psilocybin, which is a much gentler, less consequential approach to mental health than ketamine or the current medications that we have. So there's no side effects. There's no addictive tendencies with it.
And there's no chemical enhancements.
No,
it's just a plant that has this desired effect.
Well, yeah, it's all about the way we chose to relate to that plant. You know, there are a lot of plants that we consume that when we learn about them, we learn to moderate our intake for one reason or another, right? There, too much of this is no good. Too much of that is no good. When it came to psychedelic mushrooms, we didn't do that. We just said, no. We didn't say let's understand this and learn how to moderate our consumption. Had we done that, we'd probably be a very different place right now.
I appreciate that so much. And so, then circling back though to this sort of idea, we have this sort of pandemic of mental health, and you saw this sort of gap there. And you were just talking a little bit about how there was other avenues for people to sort of have this ability to sort of get out of that funk, and that those avenues aren't there. Can you kind of reiterate those again?
Well,
you were talking about the ability to hang out with people, or the ability.
No, I was making a comparison between the way we approached physical fitness and the way we're approaching mental fitness.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So there was an awakening here in the U.S. with regard to physical fitness in the 70s and 80s. And what brought that about were things like jazzercise and Pilates and yoga. And what that did was it brought more people into this idea that maybe I should be more attentive to my physical health. And what made it appealing is that it was done in community and it was fun.
Yeah.
That it wasn't, in order to stay in physical shape, you have to engage in something that is, call it unpleasant. Or difficult, or requires willpower. You go to the gym, you got to be disciplined. You go to Pilates because you want to, because it's fun.
Yeah,
you like being there, and you're going to see your friends, and it's a good time. And the consequence of that is you're more physically fit. So, with the mental health treatments, we're doing the same thing. We're saying that people come in, take a high dose, go into a room, go into a journey with the mushrooms, and it may be difficult, it may not, but it's going to help you with whatever is troubling you. And we're saying, no, let's do it the Pilates way.
Yeah.
Let's do it the jazzercise way. Let's give people smaller doses in community with others, and let's make it fun. So events around, engaging art and engaging music and breath work and body movement and karaoke and whatever. But with the consumption of psilocybin and with the benefits that psilocybin offers. So as a consequence of this fun evening out, you tended to your mental health, just as a consequence of Pilates was you tended to your physical fitness. And that's the approach we've taken. And we're just getting started with it.
Yeah.
But we think that, we call ourselves the Portland Psychedelic Community Center. And that's really the objective. The objective is to be here for the community, for people who already engage in psilocybin, but also to lower the intimidation for people who haven't yet engaged in psilocybin, and give them the opportunity to do so again in a communal and fun kind of setting without that sort of emotional commitment to overtaking a mental challenge, kind of head on.
It's almost like you're providing a safer journey at lower dosage, right? So and maybe safe is not the right term, because I'm thinking of the higher the dose, the more visuals, the more sort of
yes,
kind of thing.
We're offering we're sort of looking at it as it's less intimidating.
That's the word I was looking for. for.
Yeah, but a lot of people, when you speak to them about engaging in psychedelics, that's one of the things that's most intimidating to them.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Are the visuals, and but there's still a lot that can be benefited from through lower dosing. Um, and the idea is to bring accessibility. The other challenge is that full sessions and high doses are expensive.
Yeah.
And we were looking for a way to make it more accessible to people.
And I really appreciate that approach, right? Because like one of those things that that sort of gets me about the ketamine therapy, because I've talked to somebody about ketamine therapy, is it's a high barrier to entry because of the cost. And you're talking about having to invest thousands of dollars to go through a period of sessions with like therapists and all this stuff.
Look, people who are struggling with mental health crises and have those resources are bound to do it. If you offer me relief from something that's haunting me, then I will, and I have the resources. The problem is that a lot of people don't have the resources.
That's exactly where I was going.
We don't need to make it that expensive.
Yeah.
There are sunk costs like anywhere. You have rent and internet and salaries and taxes, and but there has to be a model that says that this is sustainable and profitable, and at the same time accessible.
Right. And one of the things that I was trying to get at is it's easier for somebody to come up with a couple $100, $400, $500 than it is 7, 8, 10,000.
Yeah, and that's in ketamine. I think treatments here, I don't think they cap call it $2,000 or $2,500 in Portland. I don't know, but I don't think they cap $2,500. But that's also a lot of money.
Yeah,
and we can do one of these art nights for $100. And it gives you a chance to get introduced into what psilocybin can do. And then if you want to do a deeper dive, you can do that. And with us, if you've done the lower doses and you want to do a larger dose, we'll discount you on that as well. And we'll try to make it as accessible as we possibly can, because there's a pandemic, and the more people are shut out from better approaches, then the less we're going to resolve the crisis. And we got to give an alternative to what's not working.
And I really appreciate that commitment to community too, right? Because like a lot of people are under this idea of, or this concept that, especially in the United States, that it's an individualistic society and that we're kind of on our own. And to have a community space like this where you can come and be with 20, 30 other people sharing the similar experience in a safe environment that's therapeutic is going to open the door for so many people. Because I do really think if this is your first venture on mushrooms, coming to something like this is way better to get your toes sort of in and sort of go that low dose and have that general experience, because
that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to give the people who are experienced, hopefully will come to a place like ours, because first, it's a great place.
100%. It's beautiful.
And because there are certain times and places where they want to be with a facilitator or somebody who's the cult designated driver that day. And it's if you're going to do it, we want to be able to say we're just as great a place as going up into the mountains, or and if we want this to work and we want this to be accessible to more people, then we have to embrace the legal infrastructure.
Yeah.
And we have to show government that we can follow these rules and well, where will be it will be safe and okay to make this more accessible to people. If we continue to do it outside of the system, then we run the risk of the system saying legalization doesn't work or it's not practical, and we don't want that. Part of what's on us to make that happen is to make sure that the price differentials aren't so dramatic that people can't justify doing it within the system.
Oh, 100%. I know what you mean. Yeah. Like, and the reality is within the system itself as well. Um, there are, for lack of a better term, there are better safety controls. There are better sort of
Sure.
because there is that risk where if you get something out in the community that because I know some people that take like capsules of mushrooms, you can't guarantee in a place outside of this setting
No.
that it's not laced with fentanyl, it's not laced with this, it's not
Well,
laced
that
with
it's even
that.
mushrooms.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so coming to a setting like this,
Sure.
without a shadow of a doubt, all you're getting is that essential.
You're getting it. It is tested. It's traced. It's regulated.
Specifically dosed.
It's specifically dosed. It's under. It's lab calculated in terms of dosage. All of these things are really, really important, particularly for the novice, but also for people who are experienced.
100%.
I'd say, I shouldn't say most, but I'd say a high percentage of the people who come here are people who have used mushrooms in the past, and some of them who use mushrooms on a more regular basis. And that was their reasoning. Their reasoning was, first it was a great place to do mushrooms, so
yeah,
that they would choose this as another place anyway, as one of their possible choices, and secondly, because we make it accessible. We're not asking for crazy amounts of money, to do it. But the real challenge is to bring in the people who could benefit from it and haven't done it or don't do it. And those are the people who get intimidated by this kind of white wall therapeutic kind of approach. Would come in and lie down and put on an eye mask, and you're off to the races, and that serves a great purpose. That's there for the people who are ready for it and interested in it. But most people don't want to start there.
Yeah,
so we thought it was really important, if we're going to be effective in bringing what psychedelics can offer for mental health. It's probably the most disruptive thing to happen in mental health care, maybe since Freud.
Yeah.
It's just going to change everything about the way we look at it, the way we handle it, the way people engage with it. It's going to change everything.
And it's such an interesting journey because I've been on a journey myself a few times. And one of the things I appreciated the most about that whole psychedelic experience was allowing yourself the ability to sort of separate yourself and talk and think about situations and problems. And for some reason, it almost separates that emotional attachment to that conversation.
Well, that's exactly what it does. I mean, first of all, the psilocybin brings a certain plasticity to the brain. So let's say that the best way to describe it is a whole bunch of thinking patterns in our minds, thinking roads, and some of those roads get a roadblock.
Yeah,
something falls on the road and blocks the road, and then the brain nothing can go through. You can't get there anymore. And what the psilocybin does is it creates a bypass. and now you're able to get around that and keep driving. And so that's the plasticity. And the other thing it does is it separates out the ego or diminishes the ego. So the individual is able to take themselves out of the situation a little bit
Yeah.
and sort of look at it from a perspective that isn't as risky for them as it would have been, excuse me, as it would have been had they not had the psilocybin. So a lot of times you think about discussing something that's um, affecting you, and just the idea of confronting it is
Terrifying.
terrifying. So this sort of takes you out of that, and you can confront it without necessarily being inside of it. And there are a couple other beneficial things that the psilocybin offers, and what the studies are showing is that the effects last for a number of months. And during that period of time is the time that the individual has to, excuse me, make some changes. That's why it's so important to, if you do a deep dive, if you do one of these fun events, you don't have to run off to a therapist afterward. But if you're doing one of these deep dives, they call it integration, but it's really, really important to go to a trained therapist and let them help unravel some of that stuff for you. And now that you have that bypass road and you were able to think of it without yourself being inside of it, you can communicate about it in a very different way. And a trained therapist can help you sort of leave it behind. And
Which I don't think people like. Okay, if you've been through a situation like that, you can appreciate what you're talking about. If somebody has not been through the situation in life where they've needed or they've impacted by some sort of trauma or some sort of event, how powerful what you just said is. It just transformational, like the ability to move past, embrace, and just move past something like that is life changing.
sure.
The minute you can let go, because like I was in a very abusive relationship for the longest time, and it wasn't until psilocybin that allowed me that ability to sort of take a step back and not blame myself.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I would blame myself for a lot of things. Like it's this, like, but no, like that was so freeing to
Oh,
have
yeah.
that, to have step back, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Because
my
your
fault.
ego wasn't part of it anymore. Not ego in the sense of egotistical, ego in the sense of the
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
And when you take that out, you're able to evaluate things in a much different,
In,
much different way.
in a healthier way too.
Well, ultimately, it is healthier.
Yeah.
It's just scary for people to let themselves go.
And one of the things that frustrates me the most about this whole kind of conversation is just how much misinformation there is out there about psilocybin. Like I was reading the other day that there was somebody saying you shouldn't do psilocybin therapy because you might overdose. Like
No,
that's not
actually,
true.
no, it's not. It's not true. That I don't know if we can say that it's impossible to overdose, but it's there are no recorded
None.
instances, none,
Yeah.
zero instances of an overdose on psilocybin. Moreover, it's not addictive, so you can do it and never do it again. Where some of the other psychedelics are addictive or could be addictive.
Right.
So it's a very safe psychedelic. I think what look, anytime people lose their current state or go into some sort of altered state, and their mind is elsewhere, call it. A lot of people find that intimidating. They want to remain in control.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a price to pay to be in control. And you can edge off that need to be in control through the lower dosing, and then if you want, you can go to the higher dosing. I don't know that everybody needs to go into a hallucinogenic state in order to benefit from psilocybin. I think that um, the diagnosed probably would benefit greatly. But I think the people who are under the threshold of diagnosis, I think just exposure and some sort of consistent interaction with psilocybin would do a lot to ease that anxiety or that depression or those kind of symptoms, or urges for alcohol or resistance to uh, or challenges with food. So I think just like any medication, depending on the severity of the pathology, you're going to measure how much medication is kind of required. I don't we don't need to distance ourselves from that sort of model. If somebody has bad PTSD, it's probably best that they take a higher dose and they go through the journey. And those who choose to do that, we have excellent facilitators that stay in the room and watch and help them. And we have a large facility where they have different changes in setting if they're challenged by any specific setting that they're in. And our job is to give them the most comfortable and safest journey that we can. But it's work that they're going to have to do. On the other hand, the people who are or I shouldn't say pre, that means that they're on their way to people who don't meet the threshold for diagnosis, they benefit just by having the smaller dose. You don't need a big dose, right? A lot of disease, a lot of medicine, less disease, less medicine. And so we give them lower doses and to encourage that they engage their mental health in very much the same way that people were encouraged to engage their physical well-being.
Okay.
We create events for them to be able to engage that are fun and in community.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way we're looking at helping or doing our part to contribute to diminishing this pandemic we have.
And I like to look at things like in analogies. And so like if you're looking at like a medical thing, right? There's difference between getting a cut in your finger and putting Neosporin on it versus you losing a finger. There's much more drastic intervention required.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I appreciate about a facility like this and with like a group kind of settings and having people who are more experienced with new people as well, the new people benefit from people that are more experienced, because if they have questions along the trip or they have something going on, somebody who's more experienced can be like, I've been through that. Let's go to a different setting. And so, because that's huge. Like just getting up and moving to a different setting switches the brain.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we were very aware of that when we were developing the space. We thought it was probably one of the best ways we can prove to people who engaged or have engaged psychedelics that we understand psychedelics, because the alternative to being outdoors, if you're going to be an alternative to being outdoors, then you have to understand that you get the connection and the importance of being able to move and being able to see certain things and witness certain things. And so the people who guided us as we were developing the place, they were very insistent on many of those things,
and it paid off like in spades. Like
absolutely.
just and I mean this, like just walking through your facility today, and just the intention of how you put the places together, and like even coming down to those carpets in the other room that look like grass,
Mm-hmm.
that not only look like grass but feel amazing. Like just those little nuanced touches make all the difference.
Yeah, and it was guy who guided us was a guy named Brian Arnold, and he was very passionate about um, uh, both the potential of psychedelics in helping people and in what a place needs to have in order for it to really serve somebody going through that. You have to have a lot of respect for somebody who's coming in um, with a diagnosed case of PTSD and is going to be taking psilocybin in a really a courageous effort to not let this affect their lives any longer.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
heavy
a
thing.
big step.
That's a huge thing, and they deserve going through that step. Um, our forethought in how to best accommodate them and best serve them as they go through that. Um, uh, we have tremendous respect for people who have gotten to a point where they say, "Okay, I'm. This is not a first step in the treatment of mental health. This is,
Right.
this is after other things really just haven't done what we want them to do." And the lower dose events are really preventive. The idea is let's just like the gym was supposed to prevent instances of heart disease and blood pressure, because the more fit we are, the less occurrences we're going to have in those things. Uh, so too here, let's tend to people's mental health. Let's give them a gym where they can work out their minds,
Yeah.
tone their mental health, and maybe many of these people will never get to being diagnosed, because we will have prevented it by reaching it before they got diagnosed.
And I love the whole concept of alternatives too, because like if you think about people in general, right? And I say this ad nauseum on this podcast, like not even identical twins have the same life experience. And so to have this sort of one size fits all treatment for mental health is never going to work, because people react differently to medications, people react differently to therapy, all of these different ways. And so why wouldn't we expand that option so that psilocybin would be just one of those options that can help with mental health?
Well, remember, medicine today treats mental health as a chemical
Oh,
pathology, right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
so it has nothing to do with, from their perspective, it's nothing to do with life experience. Just as my heart works the way your heart works, and if I have uh, um, uh, cholesterol and you have cholesterol, then chances are what will help me get rid of my cholesterol will help you get rid of yours, right? That's a common logical theory under which medicine works. Problem is they extended it to mental health, saying that my brain and your brain work the same way. So if I'm depressed and you're depressed, the same drug must work to make us not be depressed. That's not the way that works. It does it with the heart, but it doesn't with the mind. Um, and that's why psilocybin is so interesting, because each person, it does do for each person um, um, what that specific person needs to have done. It's not. It doesn't work. It physiologically works the same way on my brain, but the roadblocks I have are not the roadblocks you have. So it's able to bypass my roadblocks just as it's able to bypass yours. But the end result will be you will understand your roadblock better than you did before, and I'll understand my roadblock better than I did before. Um, and that's powerful. That's why it's got such tremendous potential and can really, really, really um, 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 change the way mental health is approached in this country, and then really around the world. We're not the only ones who are discovering psychedelics.
And do you think this is something that's going to keep going? So, like, what I mean by that is, like, some of the laws where Oregon was like made some drugs legal, and they've sort of switched back like that. Are we
Uh,
in a place where there's a concern that mushrooms or psilocybin would be on that sort of discussion?
I think, look, it always runs a risk if people don't, if the regulatory infrastructure doesn't prove to have been effective
Yeah,
in regulating and limiting what's deemed as illegal use, then there's always a chance that they come and say, hey, this didn't work. And if it didn't work, then we're going to reclassify. Once they take away the regulatory environment, it's no longer legal.
yeah,
Right? It's only legal within that regulatory environment. It's not legal outside of it. So there's always a chance that they do that. There's always a chance that the federal government elects to intervene, but I don't think they will. And I don't think we would be in danger in Oregon either. If anything, I think there's going to be a rollout as
God, I hope so.
as other state. Well, again, it all depends on how much compliance the legal infrastructures are able to demonstrate, because other states aren't going to do something that's impossible to regulate. So if we in Colorado prove that we are regulatable, right? Even the regulations that we don't like, and there are some. If we as operators understand that regulators always move slower than entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
give them a chance, let them go at their pace. They're not without risk, right? So they need to do it the way they need to do it, and we need to follow the way they need to do it. And if we show that we can, and Colorado shows that they can, even though they have a different regulatory environment, then other states will become a little bolder and take it on as well. And there are many who are considering it, who are thinking about it. They say all politics is local. Well, the mental health crisis is a local crisis, and it manifests itself in ways that affects the community.
yeah.
And it's becoming clearer and clearer to a lot of people that whatever approaches we now have to mental health aren't working. We just have to look at our windows to see that. So when something else comes along and says, "Hey, we think we can contribute to diminishing of this very human issue, but also one that has consequences for others," we think we can contribute to alleviating that, and more and more places are going to say, "Okay, let's give it a try."
And I appreciate that piece there, because it sort of brings to mind this idea of mental health in the community, because it's not an isolation.
Oh, absolutely not.
People who are suffering from depression, it impacts their families, it impacts their own situation,
Their friends, their workspace, their ability to do their jobs. It has a ripple effect that can be measured both in terms of the challenges it prevents to the people around them, but also to the businesses that in other words, there's a measurable financial consequence.
Oh, 100%.
So
Yeah.
with that measurable financial consequence, that's an additional motivation. For some might even be a primary motivation, which as long as they get it done, I don't care. To resolve this problem, mental health is having a tremendous consequence on our society in many, many different ways: social, economic, familial, many, many different ways. And anybody who has a member of their family who is clinically diagnosed with a mental illness, um, understands the challenges that that individual has and the challenges that that individual presents on others. Um, so uh, I think there's consensus that it needs to be addressed. I think the challenge is that the tools we have to address it are insufficient. The therapy path is takes a long time
Yeah,
and is
a
very
long
expensive.
time. Yeah,
Very expensive. Medications are either ineffectual, addictive, have great side effects, or they work but with the side effects. Um, so, and we have way too many people to treat that the system can't even handle if they wanted to.
yeah. I know. Like, so I'm autistic, and I'm a part of a lot of groups of people on the autism spectrum, and I would say a third, maybe even closer to a half, can't find a single therapist. We just can't find one that has one takes OHP and two that has the time available necessary for somebody on autism to go through therapy. And it's such an interesting dilemma to be in because like you'll get a list from your insurance of like 43 therapists and you dial up all 43 of them and none of them are taking new patients.
No, the system's overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. There's too many, too great a need and not enough. So uh, we need an alternative. We need a new approach, and one of the most promising approaches is psilocybin. And now the question becomes, how do we deliver it as a service to the community in ways that they can be open to and receptive to, and also that they can afford? And that's it's really kind of taken us 6 months since we opened to almost define it. And I'm sure we'll go through additional definitions along the way, but we think we're getting closer.
Yeah.
Um, and we have an event this Saturday night, which we capped at 12 people, and we've got 12 people. The facility itself can accommodate up to 100, but uh, that would probably be for more celebratory kind of activities like a karaoke or something like that. These other sessions we try to keep to between 10 and 15 people, and that's community size.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd go to 25 if it was something that, but we wouldn't really go higher than that. And it's important because what happens is people come to one event and then they see each other, and they come to another event and they see each other. They start to form friendships, and they start to do more things together. And part of one of the biggest drivers of the mental health crisis in this country now is loneliness.
Oh, 100%.
So
Yeah.
so you almost as a consequence of your other actions, you're helping them even beyond, because you're helping them find a place where there's kind of a community for them. You know, Norm, as people open the door or whatever. Like Cheers, um, but that kind of place where they can feel at home, and we know their name.
And that's huge. Like huge. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
know so many people that don't get out of their house at all anymore.
oh yeah,
And
especially with streaming.
yeah, like especially like for most of the state right now, employees work from home. And so you don't even have that same sort of traditional in-office personal experience. And
No,
so you're in isolation
and and
10
and
hours a day.
and we used to have a commonality in culture. So
Yeah.
we all watched the same thing. We all met. The old saying used to be, around the water cooler. But people would come and, did you see, Seinfeld last night? Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And there was always a commonality, something that, you know. Now people are watching so many different things that you don't have that anymore. You can't. places and ways to connect with people are becoming so um, numerous that you it's almost like a lottery that if you and I watch the same thing last night, there's almost
It's like maybe a 2% chance.
yeah, as opposed to back used to be 80-90%. So we don't have that uniformity of culture anymore. We don't have get out of the house and go to work every day culture anymore. People stay in their homes. We don't even have to go out to shop anymore.
Yeah.
We can literally just stay in the house, and even our groceries will be delivered to us. So you could literally go days without interacting with somebody. And that's not healthy either.
It's something that's interesting that's happened to me as I've gone through this podcast journey, and I've been going out a lot and sort of being in the community. I hear a lot of things from people saying, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how you have the energy, and I don't know how you do this or do that. And I'm like, I'm literally just getting in the car, driving to a location, and just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm doing this monolithic thing that takes all of this energy and desire. But the perception now is it takes so much effort just to leave the house. And I've always been curious, like, why and when that perspective changed. Because it used to be like, you want to get out. Now it's like, I want to stay in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, staying in is probably the worst thing for your mental health. Like, we as human beings, I don't think we're meant to be inside all the time.
No, but it has definitely become a default.
Yeah.
The way we, absolutely.
And that's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy, and it's contributing to to this massive wave of mental health challenges that are, and again, it can even be low level mental health challenge, but the spectrum of mental health disorder, wherever you are, it's not pleasant when it's having its effect. And so if we can take that away from you, and you're not going to be able to take away people being sad at some times, or people being, and that's natural, and that's fine. But it gets to be an issue when it becomes something that overrules your normal behavior, I guess is the way I would describe it. Where you no longer have the impulse to go out, and you no longer have the impulse to interact, and you no longer have, you're not eating well, and all of that. That's the inevitable place people will get to if we don't treat it. And right now we're not treating it, so that's where people are.
Yeah.
But we can entice them out and give them a chance to regain their capacity for joy, because that's really what happens. We just lose our sense of joy.
And just in that low dose realm, when you come into a place like this, and because I know a lot of people blame it on their anxiety about like meeting new people and going through this experience.
Very well.
Mushrooms help so much with that potion, just even at the base.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
You take that small microdose.
There's a certain compassion that you, because ego is diminished, there's kind of a greater compassion and less of a sense of self and more of a sense of being with everybody. I think that, for the shy or people who are uncomfortable in social settings, I'm sort of one of them. I'm not, super comfortable when I walk into a room. But I think that the tendency then is to avoid walking in the room, and the better, healthier thing to do for yourself is to walk into the room and then have it be pleasant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're aiming on.
And it's way less likely you're going to be judged when you're in a collective of people on psilocybins.
Oh, yeah. No, you won't be judged.
Yeah.
You won't be judged. And most of the time, people who are engaging in it are pretty, accepting folks to begin with. It's
That is
you
true.
start with once you get to the point where you're willing to try it, you've already um, loosened up on some of your uh, I don't want to use the word prejudices, but some
Rigidity
of
almost.
thank you, better
Yeah.
word, much better word. Yeah. So once you said, okay, I'm going to go, it's an inconsequential dose. It's not, it's um, not hallucinogenic in any way, but I'm going to benefit from it. And once you made that decision, you're kind of already more accepting than you were before you made the decision.
And almost like you're priming your brain for that experience as well. So almost like you're turning on different parts of your brain the minute you make that switch to be sort of open to the
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. And once you are, you know, um, then that openness sort of remains to other things that you might have been a little less tolerant of or willing to consider being tolerant of. Or so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can attribute psilocybin to a lot of changes in my life, all of them positive. Um, and I guess one of the things that I would encourage people listening is to do some research, um, and talk to somebody that's been through it. And I highly encourage you to take that step and try it.
They can also come here and see the place and meet us and
Oh, that's awesome.
anytime.
Yeah.
People we got to let them in downstairs, so they got to let us know they're coming in advance. But anytime. We actually had people who did a drop by yesterday. I didn't expect them. They called from downstairs. We're downstairs. We want to come up and see the place. I let them come up. They saw the place. They sat for about 20 minutes. I answered their questions. He's coming on Saturday night.
I love it.
Yeah.
So how many times a week do you have sessions?
We're going to start twice a week, and then we're going to move to more often.
Okay.
And depending on what the community wants, we're willing to be open every day. If that's something that the community is looking for, and we don't have to have only psilocybin events. We have a breathwork specialist coming in. She's doing 3 weeks in a row. The first week, no psilocybin. The second week, 2.5 milligram, and the third week, 5.
Okay.
So not every event has to be with consumption. We're
And
under the
breathwork.
same rules as if we were having consumption, but it's not doesn't have to be consumption. And we really want it just to. We're here for the community. People can tell us they want this kind of an event, we'll give it to them. We really just want to. We created it, and now we want people to use it.
And it's a really nice space.
Thank you.
Like I really appreciate what you've got here.
Thank you.
And so like in terms of where people can go to find information.
We have a website up now, which we're changing because when we started, we were as therapeutic in focus as all the other service centers. So we were talking about individuals and deep dives. And it's over the past few months that we've come to realize that we're not providing the service that's needed here. People who couldn't afford a $2,000 day, that's a very limited among the people who need this. In fact, more people who are economically challenged probably are suffering from lower level depression and anxiety than. So we weren't serving the community. That's when we went through this whole process of, okay, what can we do to serve? How do we make it accessible in terms of price? What would make people benefit from it? That's how we came up with the community and having it be fun. It was a transition for us. So the current website is more on the traditional model, but we can still be found there. It's tsmpdx.com. And we're in the process of creating a new website that will be much clearer in terms of these lower dose opportunities, and let's just get people in and have them introduced and see what it does for them in terms of improving their lives, their relationships, um, their capacity for joy,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
Yeah. One thing I can think of on the top of my head that is needed more than anything else is a safe space for domestic violence survivors.
Sure.
Like uh, having because I envision like this idea, and we'll talk offline because I think it's something that I would like to sort of see if we could work out on. But I know so many people that are victims of DV that would benefit from a very low dose, sort of non therapeutic,
Sure.
happy event
We
just
we
for
we have a
survivors.
facilitator that works with us that is very engaged in end of life,
Yeah.
and she wanted to have a group here, and many of the people in the group weren't able to afford it. And my answer to her was, if you give your time, I'll give the space.
Yeah.
So I can't I can't carry the cost of the facilitators, but if the facilitators want to give their time, then I won't impose any cost on the facility.
See, that's
So
beautiful.
we're doing it with them. We were approached about some by a group on domestic violence. We will assist them in any way we can.
Yeah.
In any way we can.
Yeah.
Part of being here for the community is serving the community when the community needs to be served. You know, the community needs to understand that we need to be sustained, but we need to understand that there are going to be circumstances where we need to give of ourselves, and we will. We
And
do, and we will.
and the part about that too that I think is absolutely beautiful is that it's community focused. Because like too many entities or organizations, it's just about the profit. It's just about like how many clients we get through the door, and it's not about how many people we can help in our community.
If you help a lot of people, the profit will come.
100%.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's the key right now. You know, the this won't work if we focus only on profitability and we exhaust ourselves out of the market because the people who could afford it and wanted it did it, and now there's nobody left, and you're not doing a service.
Yeah.
The way to do this is to make it as accessible as we can to people. Um, make sure that anyone who wants it gets it, even if they can't afford it. Work through the organizations, and that's important because we're not going to do the due diligence to see whether or not the person can afford it, but we're trusting on the organization. So if the organization wants to bring 15 people and have 10 pay and 5 be sponsored by us, then we're fine to do that. But they're going to pick the 5, not us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're trusting in them to make sure there's not abuse in what we're trying to give, but at the same time, we're extremely anxious to provide it because that's really the mandate. If we count success in how many people we help, as opposed to how much money we make, then at the end we'll find ourselves gratified and financially secure.
Yeah.
You know.
I can't express how appreciative I am
Hey,
of
thanks.
that.
Thank you.
Like it's refreshing. Like one of the things that like I always say, like I will not have somebody who's not kind at my podcast. I just won't do it. If you're not kind, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal with you because like there's too many avenues for people who are kind, and it's organizations like this that need to exist. And
Sure.
because like you're saying, like the need is there, And I think that you have this opportunity here, and I'm all in supporting this endeavor as best as I can, because this is simply an amazing approach. And it's so different just in like how you talk about it, how you sort of present it, sort of your ideas and your philosophies. It's so much different than that traditional medicine approach. And
That traditional medicine approach speaks to a small group.
yeah,
First of all, it emerged at a time when there wasn't a crisis. You know, you didn't need to speak to a lot of people. You need to speak to the people who needed it. Now we have a huge crisis, and not everybody's willing to identify as having one pathology or another. But they know, in the again, it comes to that idea of, are you diagnosed or are you not diagnosed? Um, uh, it happens on a spectrum. It isn't a black and white. There isn't a line out. Yeah, on this side you are, and on this side you're not. There's a huge spectrum, and we're leaving too many people on the lower ends of the spectrum unattended.
yeah.
And all that does is bring them to the center of the spectrum. And we're smart enough to know better.
And we're leaving a huge portion of our population who needs it the most behind.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's, that's something we do.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of the American way.
It's
unintentionally, intentionally or not.
Yeah, and I would hope it isn't intentional, but it is a consequence of it.
Yeah.
So we got again, if we bring them the service and address it, we will prevent it from getting worse. We will allow worse for us, and we will allow it to be better for them. So where's anybody losing in this?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's better for everybody. There's no downside to it at all.
And where in life do you have these examples of an actual win-win
of this magnitude?
Yeah. Like, it's very rare.
This is a societal magnitude. This is, again, it's the mental health crisis is affecting everything: our healthcare system, our society, our families, crime rates, homeless rates, unemployment, lowered productivity,
and even on the
tax base.
Side.
I mean, its consequence is huge.
And even on the metabolic side too, right? There is this, you see, I don't know if correlation is the right word, but you see this association with people with mental health concerns and how it impacts their metabolic health, their blood pressure,
sure,
heart disease,
absolutely,
diabetes, and all of these other things that can be tied directly towards somebody's mental health.
Sure. Yeah. Which is the irony, because we put physical fitness ahead of our mental fitness, and it's actually the mental fitness that's going to have a far greater consequence on the physical fitness than the other way around. So if we were smart, we'd focus on our mental fitness as the top priority, knowing that if we did that, we'd have less to focus on physical fitness. So we'd have less instances of all the diseases that are, for example, anxiety induced.
Yeah.
But we don't. We don't do that.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, we have been at this for an hour.
Have we?
We have.
Time flies.
I know, especially when it's a really good conversation.
I enjoyed it.
Craig, this was awesome.
I enjoyed it very much.
And if you get a chance to come down and check this place out, please do so. Talk about, like, just when you walk in the door, you'll see. If you want a safe place for an experience, this is it, folks. Craig, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.